For my summer one child growth class, I had to observe 4 hours of observation at 4 different sites and then take notes on what happened as pertaining to child growth and development that we've been learning about in the class. My first place of observation was at the Magazine Elementary School. When I arrived, I was kind of surprised at how many students were participating in the program. This is a summer reading program that they have now that school has let out, and they do it on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It takes place in their library, so they all kind of gather there in the library, and they kind of do free roam once they get there. Parents sign them in, and the kids arrive and do their thing. But what this was really cool observation. It was a cool observation for the reason of they went from kindergarten to high school. So there was lots of ages in the room, and I was able to see how the different age groups interacted with one another and how they handled being in the same room with one another, having to share the same computers, the same toys, different things like that in the books. And so it was interesting to see the different behaviors even among the age groups and also among the genders. One thing that I thought was really interesting is that among the younger students, which were more outgoing than the older ones tended to stay by themselves, be more reclusive, stay on their cell phones, computers, all that. Whereas the younger ones were more about making friends, and even ones that had not been there before and didn't attend Magazine Elementary School, they were able to come to the program, and they were making friends, they were laughing, and but even among those younger students that were doing that, the boys and the girls acted different. The boys tended to stay more on video games and on the computers, whereas the girls were more drawing pictures and playing make-believe and imagination and all that. So even among the genders of the younger students compared to the older students, there was a bigger difference. Whereas in the older students, the high school students, the boys and the girls tended to act very much alike. So this was a cool observation for that reason, that I was able to see in one room kindergarten to high school age students reacting one to another and participating in activities one with another. So it was a really cool first observation. The next hour of observation that I did was at the Logan County Day Service Center in Boonville. When I arrived, the students were at playground. They were at the playground for recess. One thing that's important to note about the Logan County Day Service Center is that it's a place for people with disabilities. So they also have a preschool and an area for adults. But this particular hour I was observing in the preschool, which is for children with disabilities, but also they have students there that are not children with disabilities. They are children that are privately paid to go to the preschool. So within this classroom, there were some that had disabilities and some that were not. And one thing that I noticed with these students is that they tended to cling one to another when one wanted to do something. And there was one student in particular who was more of a leader. He was a male, and he was more of a leader. And when he would do something, all the other students would kind of follow and want to do it along with him. So one thing I noticed even among that group is that the students were very, very clingy to one to another. They were outgoing one to another. And they kind of stuck together. They were like a tight-knit group. One thing I noticed with the teachers is that there were 3 aides for this small class. They told me that they have about 12 students in the class normally, and even among those 12 students, they're not all in at the same time because some go back for different therapy sessions and appointments throughout the day there at the center. So they usually have about 9 students there at any given time, and they have 3 teachers there for these 9 students. So that was a really interesting ratio to me. And it was interesting to see how the aides had to be respectful of each student at their level, whereas some students could speak very well, some could not, and some could not interact very well with the teacher. So the teacher had to be sensitive to the unique needs of every student. After my hour there of observation, I went to the adult division. So I did an hour in the adult division at the Logan County Day Service Center. And this was a really interesting observation because here at the Day Center for Adults, everyone had a disability. And this is a place where people with disabilities can come, and they try to make it fun for them. They try to make it entertaining. So the atmosphere in the room when I arrived at this observation was something that was more of a playroom, a game room. I mean, they were all doing things and that were educational. For example, they were working on counting money, they were working on crossword puzzles, vocabulary, but it was very fun. It was a fun atmosphere. And I just noticed how friendly these people were one to another, even the ones with disabilities who couldn't speak very well. I mean, there was just such a lighthearted atmosphere there in the room. But one thing that I noted is that even the adults, though, because of their disabilities, didn't act much different than the children in the preschool with disabilities. So it was like they were very similar. There were similarities, and so the teachers had to be just as much sensitive to those needs as adults and as they were in the preschool with the children. After my hour of observation there at the Logan County Day Service Center, I went to the Boys and Girls Club in Boonville for my final hour of observation. And when I went to there, the atmosphere was a lot like that at Magazine. There was lots of excitement, lots of energy. The kids were, when I arrived in volleyball, doing volleyball practice there in the gym, and I was able to watch as Sabrina, who was the aide there, she was working and with the kids, trying to teach them how to do volleyball. So that was really interesting to see how that was happening, because the kids did range here, likewise at Magazine. They were kindergarten to 12th grade, so there was a big age group, age gap between all the kids. And so I had to be able to see how the high school students were interacting with the elementary school students in a volleyball rink. And so that was kind of cool. And then after I moved from the volleyball rink, I went over to the art room, which is where I spent most of my time. And Miss Bradshaw, she was the teacher in the art room, and she kind of lets them just have fun. It's summer, it's Boys and Girls Club, and so there in the art room, the kids made things out of toilet paper rolls, they made things out of paper, they just did lots of projects there. And so Miss Bradshaw worked hard on getting these supplies for the kids and teaching them how to do the projects. Miss Bradshaw, though, it seemed like, as far as discipline goes with the kids, she had gained such a respect from the students that when she had to get on to them, they were very quickly listening to her. They weren't mad at her, because the atmosphere was that of friendliness, lots of fun. And so I thought that was interesting to note that if children are, if they respect the teacher, that they act differently towards the teacher. So I thought that was very interesting. Overall, through my observations, I learned that we have to be sensitive to people with their special needs, because each person is unique and each person has their own flaws and the things that make us unique in learning. So being a teacher, we have to be respectful of those. And then I also learned that throughout the age groups, we have to understand that not every age group can learn like another age group. You can't teach a 4th grader like you can teach a 12th grader, because their behaviors and their activities are different. So something that would work in a 4th grade classroom wouldn't work in an 11th grade classroom. So that's something that I saw very evident when I was observing and seeing all these age groups. Overall, it was a very educational experience for me, and I learned a lot in this class.